What's up, guys and gals of the movement world? It's Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi, coming to you once again on behalf of Football Beyond the Stats and another movement skill short story this week for week 9 of the 2025 season. And today we're going to look at the tuned and adaptable behaviors of one of my very favorite movers when he is feeling himself. Stefon Diggs, now of the New England Patriots, but he was here in Minnesota for quite some time. So I was able to see how his growth and his evolution within his craft and his skill set really continues to ascend. And now, coming off of injury of last year, finding new adaptable ways of being able to move and strategize in moving, but still picking up the nuances of the informational variables of defenders in a really quick and seamless way to couple that in to how it is that he's moving. So this play, touchdown play down against the Atlanta Falcons, second quarter with the Patriots already up. Again, I apologize, something outside of our control. This sideline view looking in at Foxborough, you got the sun setting in different ways. And I want you all to think about how those types of constraints could actually impact and influence how players and what players are seeing, how they're behaving, and what they might be seeing. Because if we're seeing some of these shadows, and it's relatively difficult to pick up things like the movement actions of an opponent or maybe the ball or where it is, it also is going to be relatively more difficult and challenging or possibly perturbing for the players themselves. But let's get into this play. You're going to see Stefon Diggs split wide right there up on the top of your screen, just with this little easy choice route. And then he does something that he was known for doing here across the course of his NFL career. We saw him here in Minnesota do this type of thing really frequently. I'm going to play it a couple times through full speed, and then I'm going to talk about how we might be able to leverage this type of behavior and what we're seeing here to, let's see if I can get it back and then get us at 50% speed. How we might be able to take what we're seeing here and then apply it across situations. We talk about it here in the book, Enhancing Skill in American Football, myself, Tyler Yearby, and Rob Gray, released back in September. Convergence between the hashes. Now, some movement problems that take place in between the hashes in congestion, how we might be able to apply it outside of the hashes or even outside of the numbers as we might see here. But let's look at what led to this when Stefon Diggs actually gets the ball in hand. First, I want you to look at, and you might not be able to actually even see it that well. If you missed it, I'm going to take us back a half a beat or so, right when he's about to catch the ball. Now, again, the shadows are dark here, but I want you to really glean in on this because I think this is important, right? If you can see as he's catching the ball, where his head is turned, he's looking over his shoulder as the ball reaches and touches his hand. He's giving this brief glance, sort of in like a basketball type of fashion. If somebody's trying to make a move and come back to the other direction, he wants to get an immediate litmus test, kind of a ruling or measuring stick. Where is this immediate defender, and how could he be attempting to attack me? How close is he? How fast is he moving? And to see what I can glean from him. Now, as he looks over his right shoulder, I would have to speculate from his periphery, he's at least able to pick up like about this type of vista from his helmet. As he picks up that type of vista, he should, at bare minimum, feel this threat right here over his right shoulder as well. So he's likely able to see this guy, but feel this one at bare minimum and realize that it is much more threatening than this cat right here. So this is a 1v2 to a certain situation, but it quickly turns into a 1v3 because Stefon Diggs uses this information pickup, as we know, to then turn over his left shoulder and come back towards the boundary and fake or feint and aim to deceive that he's going right up north and south towards the end zone, right? But as he turns, he sees this dude as well, right? And these are things that I don't want you all to miss because it's this movement skill story that we get for Stefon Diggs that leads to the information detection, the perceptual pickup that one needs to have that then can channel how someone is aiming to move, how ultimately someone makes decisions or what decision is on the table for them, what affordances are actually existing there. And that's what something we're going to talk about, as well as then ultimately how they end up adaptively acting, right? So now we see this information source, and he knows between this and this as he glances, right, over his left shoulder and begins to move this way. He's able to pick up this guy, but also realize like there's a bunch of space out here that is mine for the taking, that is beckoning me to go in that direction. And all of this will be important when we talk about practice activity design. And then I want you to watch in to the nuances of Stefon Diggs here. He gives this deceptive glance as if he's moving north and south, right? He hits the gas pedal hard to draw this guy and this one together, knowing full well that as this dude here closes space to that running lane or path, it opens up even more space back behind, right? Really nuanced stuff here from Stefon Diggs, and really easy to see how we might be able to set up movement problems that look, feel, act, and unfold like this. And now, with that, with getting both of those dudes crashing towards one another, where they believe Diggs is about to go, he takes that left foot, throws it into the ground, and goes from left to right back towards the sideline. Pulls both those guys together, essentially crashing into one another, capturing both, well, at least one of their ankles here, right? And he gets back to the outside where he's got more space to operate. And then he adapts accordingly to get into the end zone. So let's not miss this because I think this is really what creates our discussion as to what could unfold. Now, again, I mentioned Enhancing Skill in American Football, our new book. In chapter 6, practice activity problem setting design for all players. On page 170, we're talking about convergence between the hashes. So a lot of times I'm doing this with players, particularly for defensive players, linebackers in particular, inside and outside linebackers, maybe safeties coming from the middle of the field. And I'm about to show you that on my next share here in a little bit. But we can take that same idea and move us out to the right. So hang tight with me if you would. I'm just going to share my other screen here so you can sort of see what it is that I'm referring to. This is exactly what we were talking about, convergence between the hashes, okay? What we can do is instead of having this box, we can have that same box going this way, right? So having and setting this same type of movement problem right here in a 10-yard, oh man, if I could draw straight, to the sideline type of window, and then putting those individuals in similar places as we have in convergence between the hashes. And we would be suggesting this dude can get the ball in any number of ways. He can get it as Stefon Diggs did, head up and having to turn left or right to get into the space. He could already have the ball entering the space. He could get a handoff and enter the space. We will use and set up this type of slice in any number of ways. And then what we want to do is with this space over here, let's just imagine, okay, we have one guy entering there and we might have it offset or offloaded like that, right? And we want to do that in a repetition without repetition fashion, and we can and we would, right? And let me get a Stefon Diggs there or an offensive skill player entering the space. He'll be our heart. And then he would enter and have the opportunity to go in any number of ways that he would deem fit, depending on what is there. And we would rep this out repetition without repetition, repeating that process of solving that problem again and again by changing nuances, both of the problem and the solution variability. Change where these defenders are. Let me take that out. Let me clear that. Change where those defenders are and where it is and how it is that they might be able to act. So then all of a sudden, it starts to unfold very similar as I'm continuing to draw here, right? As it continues to unfold very similar to that which what we might have found in the Stefon Diggs play, right? In the book, page 170, convergence between the hashes, we do this thing a lot, but we can apply that across situations. So now when you see it, and we go back to the other screen, right? Hopefully some of that makes some sense. Hopefully you can see exactly what it is that we're referring to here now in that same type of workspace. Change where the defenders are. And as you change where the defenders are, it changes the entire landscape of affordances. As it changes the landscape of affordances, also known as the opportunities to act for each respective player, both offensive and defensive player alike, it changes the movement behaviors that the players will ultimately channel. And then these types of movement behaviors, these types of highly attuned and adaptable movement behaviors will certainly begin to become the norm for your players on both sides of the ball, offensive and defensive players. Hopefully all of that makes some sense, and showing that illustration helped to be able to bring more clarity to what you might be able to do across situations in your own practice and learning environment to set up similar movement problems to that which what Stefon Diggs had to solve against Atlanta on Sunday. So for Football Beyond the Stats, I'm the Movement Miyagi, Sean Mishka. I will talk to you all next time.